Hello, everyone. My name is Filipa Castro, and I've been working in the field of AI since the beginning of my career. Disclaimer, it's not a huge career. I started roughly 7 years ago. Still, I've always worked within what we call traditional industries, so oil and gas, automotive, manufacturing, now finance. And 7 years ago was not long ago, but it was the time when most of these companies were starting their journey into AI, which gave me the very nice chance of observing AI adoption for the first time many times. And as you maybe relate to, at least if you work in these industries, it's much more about failure, trial and error, than actually success, as my previous speakers also told you about. And this is why I think it's interesting to be here today to share about my own experience. You are data guys, so you might be asking how much failure. Research tells us that it's around 80% of failure. And for me, the fact that 80% of AI projects fail, is a problem that interests me more and more. So what I propose to you is to dive in this problem today. I think it should also interest to you, because if it's really the case that the AI bubble will explode, this means less investment, less jobs, or at least less interesting opportunities for everyone here sitting in the room, right? So let's dive into the problem, and as any engineer likes to do, or data scientist, we start with diagnostic analytics. Why this is the case? You can see there are two main reasons, and now probably the tech guys, you are quite relieved that it's not your issue. So indeed, technology is not the biggest issue. The problem is more related to people and processes. So this means maybe lack of communication, misaligned expectations, lack of training of the organization. And in my view, and this is like my story, at the beginning, I think we can look at it and say, it's not my issue, I will focus on what I'm good at, building and deploying AI models, and managers need to take care of the rest. What happened after a few years, so this was what I did for the beginning of my career, pointing the finger to upper management, and then I realized that I was frustrated, because even though I couldn't do much on the tech side, this failure was affecting me in the long run and demotivating me. So what I propose here is today to show you why I think this is the case for AI. So what is the nature of AI that causes this high rate of failure? And then, because I believe that not only we can help to solve this management problem, but I also think we are the key ingredients to solve this problem, I will show you what worked, at least in my experience. So let's start with the first challenge. No news here. AI is new. What I think is worth discussing is the combination of its newness with its speed, its hype, and its potential for disruption. So, because AI is new, of course, upper management doesn't know about it, because they didn't learn it at university, they didn't learn it during their experience, and even if you did an MBA 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they didn't mention AI. So, of course, you need to rely on external partners that are experts on this matter, and these external partners, they are investing a lot to learn fast, to build fast, and to sell it to you. And because they need to sell, and sell a lot, of course, this creates a very hyped ecosystem. Still, you cannot ignore it, because everyone agrees, and this conference shows that there's a lot of potential for disruption, so you cannot really ignore or slow down. What I recommend, and I think tech guys should do more, is to partner with upper management. And I would start with some empathy. So put yourself in the shoes of these guys. You have a lot of pressure. You don't know AI. You don't have time to learn about AI. So I don't know yet too much about management, but I know two things. They have a lot of pressure, and they don't have time to learn. So what these guys will value a lot is to find someone within the organization that knows AI and someone they can trust. So bring them by the hand, explain them what is AI, help them to be smarter and more strategic. These guys know a lot what they need to achieve on the short and long term within the company. You know what AI can do. So together you can build a strategy which aligns with the existing strategy of the company, but that brings AI into it. Second challenge, and already discussed a lot here today, AI is super complex. So starting with just the fact that it's super multidisciplinary. So I studied, for instance, biomedical engineering. I work with chemical engineers, computer systems engineers. If you are given the task to create an AI team, there are new roles every year. So we started with data scientists, now we have data engineers. Last year we started to have prompt engineers. So just on day one, you already are a bit confused. It's already a mess, just because it's super multidisciplinary. Then it's a black box, and here I don't think I need to dive too much in detail, because it was also discussed that it's super difficult to explain the results, and it's hard to grasp. In my experience, the best example here is that I saw many times business teams coming into the AI or innovation teams with requests which are simple robotic process automation. So maybe a smart check on input forms not to allow you to put a certain field with a different format, which already shows, or is a bad signal, let's say, that we don't even understand what is AI, or people don't do. So here my advice would be to partner with this subject matter expert. So I think, as was already said here, and what worked really well for me is to explain them what is AI and what is not AI. Bring examples either from your company, if you already have other use cases, or from other industries. There are plenty of things, and this will help them to create a mental model of what is, for instance, robotic process automation and what isn't. They will learn along the way. Also, try to focus on the problem. So I already had a lot of workshops where we want to start to do AI with a certain team, and they already come with the idea that they want to do a chatbot, which is fine. Still, I normally tend to ask them to go a step back and do a few hours or even an entire day where you focus on the problems. You ask them in which tasks they are taking more time, which tasks are more manual nowadays, what is the most complex decision-making that they are doing, and then, yes, try to understand with them where AI fits or where maybe RPA fits. And once you have some use cases, also something that worked really well for me, even visually, was to cluster these solutions together with these subject matter experts. So let's say that we have a few use cases for predicting demand, predicting sales, predicting churn. Everything is about forecasting. And for us, it's obvious, but for them, it's not obvious. So just the fact that you cluster it into forecasting, they will start to understand that even if it's in sales or in supply chain, this means that you need data from the past. You need probably a lot of years because you have seasonal patterns. You need good quality data, and it will take some time to your data team to gather all this data, check the quality, experiment. If we talk, for instance, about pictures, being it an invoice from the finance team or maybe a picture from your manufacturing pipeline with a defect on your product, cluster it into computer vision, because even if it's a completely different business domain, it will require that people, humans, look at these images, label these images, and that we train CNNs, for instance. So it also is more costly in terms of the training aspect. And again, I think this is super obvious for us, but for the business guys, they will start to create a mental model. What is computer vision? What is forecasting? If we talk about generative AI, they will start to see that generating text, for instance, either in a chatbot or to generate a marketing campaign, everything is generative AI, which normally doesn't require you to train your own model. So normally it's much faster, and they will start to understand these differences in terms of the nature of the different AIs. So some tips here. It worked at least in my context. Third problem, and the most complex one, AI is super uncertain. First of all, because it depends on the data, either where you train or the data that you give it as input, which means if your AI team was able to deliver a super nice algorithm that works to predict sales in market A, it doesn't assure you by any means that it will work for market B. Because at least in my experience in these traditional industries, probably the team that is collecting the data is different. Probably even the database is different. The guys that are collecting this data are in the other part of the world. So as a manager or as a tech lead in AI, even if you did this 2-3 times already, it gives you a bit more confidence, but you cannot tell that this will work. And the same for computer vision. If you created a solution that works with high-definition images, doesn't mean that you can do the same for pictures taken with the mobile phone, as an example. Apart from that, it's stochastic, which makes it super difficult to reproduce results. So I'm sure that if you are working with GenAI and RAG solutions and your business teams are working with them, they already came back to you saying, Philip, I don't understand why I give the same prompt, the same document, and the answer yesterday was different. So it's super hard also to evaluate because of that, and because normally it requires you to have a human to look at this data and to evaluate. So again, this is not something we can change, but I think we can try to reduce this risk or mitigate it by starting with an exploration, what I call an exploration phase, which I think should be a step in your AI initiative before you actually call it an AI project, because normally in these traditional industries, a project means that you already have resources allocated, budget allocated, maybe for 2-3 years. And having this exploration before with a limited scope and timeline, let's say 3 to 6 months, where the limited scope should mean, let's say you want to classify tens, thousands of images into 3 or 4 classes. You should start with a smaller set, just to get a feeling if it works or not, but still with a good representation and distribution of your real scenario. And this will allow you to align expectations much earlier. Believe me that aligning on the expectations of the accuracy of your model is not a nice discussion or easy discussion to have. So after the exploration phase, if you have 80% accuracy, you can already have this discussion with the business. What do they expect? They normally expect 100%, which doesn't even make sense normally in the AI scenario. So I think it's better to anticipate this discussion after 2 or 3 months rather than having a full AI project for 2 years with a lot of money and people invested, and then later you have this hard discussion. And it will also allow you to accept the funnel. So funnel means I think we should have a lot of AI initiatives, AI explorations, and then it should be okay that only 2 of them are feasible enough to go on. So I think like in science, this should be seen as progress, not failure. And then you can tell, it was not the case that 80% of my AI projects failed. It was the case that 80% of my explorations did not proceed, and this makes a lot of difference in terms of communication from my experience. Lastly, AI is still, in my opinion, too much isolated in the sense that the examples that I've been seeing, normally you build something and if you deploy it, it's another tool. So let's say a web interface where you interact with this AI, it's not super integrated. It's also another tech stack. So in the industries where I worked, people are using things like SAP, C++, Java, and the data team is using Python, which of course is not wrong and makes sense, but it's another silo. And it's normally another team. So maybe in startups it's a bit different, where I see data science teams incorporated into the product teams. In traditional industries, from what I saw, normally you are a separated team that you collaborate with the business, but it's still another team. And again, I don't think this is wrong. I don't think we necessarily need to change, but I think there are some things that we can do to reduce the risk of having this isolation. And this would be integrating as fast as possible. So even after your exploration, before having a full AI project, try to integrate your algorithm, even if it's a very bad one with bad accuracy, into the workflow of the user. In this case, I don't think you should measure accuracy, and I think you shouldn't also measure how much time are users saving, because at this point they won't save much yet. But if users are already curious and they are using it and it's well integrated in their environment, I think usage is already a quite good sign that makes you confident that you can proceed. It will also allow you to predict better how much overhead you will have, because when you bring a guy from Python with a guy from Java or C++, or someone that is working in the shop floor, this is overhead that you didn't expect during the planning phase, and it costs a lot of time. So if you do this fast, even though you don't have yet a super nice algorithm, you will be able to better prepare and to better plan and estimate the actual project. And it will also give time to your team, so these Python guys, Java guys, or manufacturing guys, to have the time to understand what is the best setup to collaborate. So summing up, because AI is super new, I would suggest that tech guys shift a bit the attitude towards partnering with upper management. Remember, some empathy, bringing them by the hand, literating them, and building a strategy together which fits AI in there. Because AI is super complex, we need to be part of this process of literating the organization, so it shouldn't be the case that HR is responsible just for teaching the organization. I do my part and you bring the business knowledge. You need to explain what is AI, what is not AI, cluster the topics, make them create visual models about this. Because AI is super uncertain and we cannot do much to reduce the uncertainty, but we can try to mitigate the risk. Start with an exploration phase with a limited scope, limited timeline. This will help us to better expect the overhead that we might be coming into the future. And because AI is still too much isolated and we don't necessarily will change the tools or the teams or the roles, but it could help that we integrate as soon as possible and start this journey as soon as possible. If none of this makes sense to you, or maybe you have a completely different experience, my main motivation to present here is exactly to discuss this afterwards, so please feel free to connect for a follow-up. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.